Hello and welcome. We have an amazing treat. We have Dr. Maya Sharma with us today, and there is a lot of common thing between myself and Dr. Sharma. Dr. Sharma also did her medical school. She also did her MBA, and she has been active in the field of critical care medicine, which is near and dear to my heart. So, welcome, Dr. Sharma, to our channel today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Dr. Sharma, I have followed you and got a chance, doing amazing work. I know that you have done multiple different things in leadership and hospital management and saving and touching a lot of lives through your work in regulatory field and pharmacovigilance in many different areas. So please, to our viewers who have not interacted with you so far, please introduce yourself and tell a little bit about yourself.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much, Rahul. So I'm basically a doctor, as you said, and a rare breed, which has also done an MBA. And I'll tell you a brief story about this journey, that why this kind of a dual combination. When I finished my MD, I started working as a typical clinician and hit the ground running by working in ICUs. So I have managed medical ICUs, cardiac ICUs, and surgical ICUs. But then there was a point in time when, I was feeling that despite and in spite of all the efforts and providing the best medications, sometimes we are not able to help the patients and we were losing them, right? And that's when I started contemplating that whether I'm doing the right thing, whether I am realizing my true potential by working in this particular field, or is it there's something else that, I can do still helping the patients without directly seeing them. And, when I discussed this with my near and dear ones, they were obviously raised eyebrows as to how you can hang up the stethoscope. And I was like, no, it's not exactly about hanging up the stethoscope, but I could not convince myself either. But thankfully, there was during one of these medical ICU's night duties that a senior consultant was there. And when I discussed my dilemma, she shared that you're still young, you're a doctor. So anytime you want to come back to medical practice, after venturing out into the field that you choose, you can always do that because nobody can take away your experience, nobody can take away your degree or skill sets. And believe you me, Rahul, that it gave me so much of confidence, along with the safety net, with open arms that yes, these people will welcome me back even if I fail. So thankfully, when I ventured out, it occurred like it is tailor made for me because I pursued pharma, and in pharma, you are learning every day. You're moving from one domain to another, from cardiology to oncology to diabetes to infectious diseases. And because of this, you are like on top of your game. You're learning, you're engaging the KOLs, learning about regulatory affairs and pharmacovigilance and whatnot. So it has been an exciting journey of approximately 20 years now, in which I did not stop just at pharma. I moved into medical nutrition, medical devices, right? So that ways it has been a tremendous learning curve for me. And I give all the credit to the organizations that I've worked for, like AstraZeneca, Abbott, Philips, and currently with Win Medicare and Modibundi Pharma.
Fantastic. Such an amazing story right there. You have mentioned so many different things, and I wish I could interview every single thing you talked about it. But for today, first of all, folks, if you have not followed Dr. Sharma on LinkedIn, on Twitter, please do so. There's a lot goes there, and then Dr. Sharma contributes quite a bit. You did mention about pharmacovigilance, and I'm going to pick on that. So those who are not familiar with the field, what can you tell us? Please explain about it, what pharmacovigilance is, and then how it helps the industry, community, or healthcare medicine.
Sure. So to simplify, pharmacovigilance is divided into pharmacos and vigilance. So those are the two Greek words from which this name has been coined. The word pharmacos means anything which is related to pharmaceuticals or medicines or drugs. And vigilance, as we understand, is the state of keeping an active vigil or a careful watch for anything we expect is going to be dangerous, or difficult. So combining these two, we get the word pharmacovigilance. And I would say more so as a doctor, because when I took the Hippocrates oath on getting my degree, there was a part of that Hippocrates oath which said that even in conditions I'm not able to do any good to my patient, at least I'm going to do no harm. So no harm is the mantra. There are times when the patients are critical, and more so from our experiences, we can say in critical care that not 100% of the times we are able to help or save the patients. But yes, it is our intent, and our efforts are directed towards doing no harm to this patient. And that's why I would say, even when we talk about clinical trials, we talk first about safety and then efficacy of these medications, right? So pharmacovigilance basically is the science which combines all the activities which we do for the detection, assessment, understanding, and prevention of adverse events of any medications or vaccines. And all medications, vaccines, even devices, I mean, their pharmacovigilance system is called material vigilance. So all of them go through a very rigorous testing of safety and efficacy before they are authorized for use in the markets. And there is a very strong, very sad history behind why the system became so stringent, and that is the thalidomide tragedy. So we have come a long way from that, but it was in the late 1950s and the early 1960s. So this drug thalidomide was initially approved in Germany as a tranquilizer and a sedative. And then it became so popular that it started giving tough competition to aspirin sales. It was used in that indication as well as an off-label indication in pregnancy for morning sickness. And it became kind of widely used in 43 countries within a span of 3 years. And there were like within these 43 countries for indicated as well as off-label indications. And as we said, morning sickness is something which happens primarily in pregnant ladies. And when it was given, there was something which was noticed by an Australian gynecologist. He noticed that, some of his patients or these pregnant ladies, when they gave birth, these children were having cochomalia, which is either absence or shortening of limbs. And then that raised the alarm. And after that, people realized that, there is some connection with this drug thalidomide. And then it was banned in all the countries in 1962. After this tragedy, all the stakeholders were alarmed, and the pharmacovigilance systems, the regulatory and the drug approval systems became stringent. But I would say rightly so, because when we talk about the credibility, then it is not just about the efficacy, it is more about the safety of the drugs, right? So that is why increasing the credibility of the drugs, of the pharmacovigilance systems, the healthcare providers, right? Because if you're not providing the right information to them, they would not be able to give personalized medication to their patients, right? So alarming them as well, involving them in the pharmacovigilance systems, the governments becomes important. So that is the brief history behind pharmacovigilance and what pharmacovigilance is and why we are working in this space.
Well, thank you so much for that elaboration. And then this is a good reminder for those. We have all heard about the thalidomide tragedy and read about these things, but putting in this context is very important. You are already very young, but if you have to explain or motivate the younger medical graduates who are just coming out from the field, they may or may not want to pursue the typical traditional clinical path as well. What would be your advice to them, how they can utilize opportunities being active in pharmacovigilance field, maybe a pharmacovigilance officer or any other roles? What your advice to these younger medical graduates?
Sure. So let me tell you that, if you're following pharmaceuticals, then the number of pharmaceutical companies is either increasing, or when there is merger and acquisition going on, their size is increasing, right? But overall, they're increasing in their strength and potential and overall. And having said that, the pipeline is really robust for oncology drugs, cardiology, and diabetes. With COVID coming in, there was again a tilting of focus to even antimicrobials, with vaccine, occupying the top spot. So what I'm trying to say is there is a lot of pressure on pharma companies to come up with newer drugs, better drugs, safer drugs. And at the same time, there is pressure on the drug regulators to approve that in the fastest possible time so that patient can avail that benefit, especially when we saw the times like COVID, emergency situations, oncology, rare diseases, etc. Right? So when we talk about these conditions and the pressures on both the pharma as well as the regulators, a lot of onus lies on pharmacovigilance professionals to make sure that in the short duration of time, whether 2 years or 5 years when the drug was tested, it may not have been tested on all patient populations for a long duration. It might have missed a lot of chronic side effects, right? And some rare conditions. So that is why also, if we take into account the concomitant medication, the comorbid conditions, so there are a lot of situations in which a real assessment of safety profile of the drug could have been missed out, not deliberately, but because of the conditions given. And that is why the onus lies on pharmacovigilance professionals to continue monitoring, assessing, and alerting the regulatory bodies as well as the pharma companies that whether the drug is going right or there are newer side effects coming up, whether there are severe side effects, potential side effects coming up, right? So that is why you have seen that the positions of drug safety physicians are opening more and more in these organizations. So when we talk about drug safety physician, it's a doctor who has a medical degree, right? Because the physician and the medical review of the individual cases, we call them ICSR, individual case safety reports. That is done by a medical person, right? The drug safety physicians. So not just that can be an individual case, but even the periodic ones like periodic safety update reports is done by these physicians. Then there are kind of queries which are generated from the patients, from the healthcare providers, from the regulatory bodies. So these are answered by these physicians as well. They co-author the medical assessment and the quality assessment documents for the pharma companies. So that is why their importance and the quantity of the role is increasing. So I would say it's a very nice field, even though you're working for a corporate. In a way, you're also contributing to public health. So that is what I feel really nice about it. So it's a win-win situation. So you are earning well, you're working for corporate, but you're still keeping patient safety and public health in mind. So that is why my advice for the young graduates would be do not shy away from contemplating this as a career option.
Absolutely. And the folks who are listening today, you have heard it right here from Dr. Sharma's mouth, is that, this is an exciting field. You are contributing, there's a lot of help is needed to make these the drugs safer, our communities safer, our patients life safety, and then this could be ventured out in that regard. Let me ask you a question. We live in the world of AI and machine learning, Dr. Sharma.
Yeah.
How you see intersecting these field or these technologies in pharmacovigilance? Or my question would be, would medical graduates should to make them more competitive, should they look into some of these AI machine learning model training before they get into pharmacovigilance? Because eventually some of these work could be shifted from AI and machine learning part. So what's your take on it from futuristic standpoint?
So definitely I agree with you, Rahul, that there is a need to equip ourselves with all these latest tools and armamentarium which is available in terms of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And it's not just about pharmacovigilance. I would say there is a paradigm shift in the whole of healthcare industry, and that is why it could be on-job learning or it could be a certification program which can be done earlier. But then, yes, we should keep our eyes and ears open and have that learning attitude as how to incorporate artificial intelligence. And it has been seen that, when things are done manually, there are higher chances of error. But when we are incorporating artificial intelligence, then, there is 80% automation happening and the chances of errors are reduced tremendously. We also are able to expedite, the whole process. And that is why AI and machine learning are the way to go forward, even in case of pharmacovigilance.
Absolutely, you said it right, Dr. Sharma. Dr. Sharma, we have learned a lot during this interview. For our viewers, we always try to include, share a fun fact about you. It could be career, personal, anything in that regard, which you are comfortable sharing it, or anything you want to share, which our viewers would remember you by.
Okay, all right. Well, I would share one from my childhood days. As a child, I was a complete tomboy. You know? So my brother, who was a year older to me, because he was a fussy eater, he was like very lean and thin, and I was like this healthy, muscular kid who was not afraid of anything. And I remember that, there used to be fist fights and actual fights. I never shied away from participating in the same. And more so if it was about, fighting for my brother or for my friends, I always used to give a tough fight. And surprisingly, I also used to win them. Interesting fact is, the fun fact is that there were never ever any complaints at homes, because these guys were too embarrassed, to tell that at their home that they have got a beating from a girl. But let me tell you, this boosted a lot of confidence, not just in terms of that I am superior physically, but more so that I'm no less than anybody else. Right? If given a fair chance, if given a fair opportunity, I can compete and I can win. And I would say that translated into my medical studies, that translated into my career. I mean, although I'm always very courteous and kind, but then, that competitive spirit is there, and that spirit of that I'm no less than anyone has taken, it has done wonders, and and taken me a long way with it. So that was about my childhood and how it has reflected upon me and my career.
Such a great positive attitude, Dr. Sharma. And thanks for sharing that with us. So before we let you go, do you like to summarize very quickly what we talked? Any three or one take home a message for our viewers today who are listening and then willing to move into pharmacovigilance field?
Sure. I would say that, let us not wait for anybody to tell us what is right and wrong. We must all participate in the process of pharmacovigilance, whether it's the pharma companies, regulators, lawmakers, governments, all should work in tandem to make sure that we are mitigating the adverse events of the drugs, making them safer. And I love to give this example of the rose and the thorn. So we know that the rose is equivalent to the beneficial effects of the drug, and the thorn is like the side effect or the adverse effects of the drug. But we all together who are working in the field of pharmacovigilance are doing the role of a thorn stripper. So we are stripping off the thorns, making sure that still the rose, the beneficial effect stays, and we can have minimum side effects, make the drug safer, and increase the credibility for all the systems together. And I'm sure that together we can and we will.
Such a great analogy, rose and thorns, and stripping those thorns. Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma, for being with us today. Our viewers, we like you to like, subscribe, as well as write your thoughts in comment section. Dr. Sharma's social media information will be in the description section as well. Please follow her. She's very much active in there as well, and you get to learn the latest in the field by following giants in the field like Dr. Sharma. Dr. Sharma, thank you once again for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Rahul, for having me. It was an absolute honor and pleasure. Thank you once again.